Universal Casualty, Super Q,
los Miami Dolphins y tú, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Son los Dolphins, nuestros Miami Dolphins, el team número 1 en toda la nación. Y son ellos orgullo de Miami y de todos los latinos en la capital del sol. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Este año no me hablen de los Redskins, no me hablen de los Chargers, ni de los Dallas Cowboys, porque los Dolphins son número 1 y lo demostrarán al llegar al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Nuestra línea está mejor que nunca y nuestra defensiva fue siempre la mejor. Y es por eso que yo no tengo duda que los Miami Dolphins ganarán el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, con los Miami Dolphins, rumbo al Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl. Con los Miami Dolphins me voy para el Super Bowl.
Universal Casualty
Y Super Q, los primeros. Bueno, caballero, todo el mundo que cante con nosotros. Dame una D, dame una O, dame una L, dame una P, una H, una I, una N, una S, que es lo que tenemos, Miami Dolphins. Me voy para el Super Bowl. 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 Me voy para el Super Bowl.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our hearts. We've got love that won't depart.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Hey, Brain.
Yes.
2-0, baby.
Oh, perfect season still intact, baby.
A pair of preseason dubs, 2-game winning streak.
Woo, we're
Let's go.
streaking.
Super Bowl, baby. Rumbo a Super Bowl. What a gringo.
Very much so. Very much.
My
so.
goodness.
That's what happens when you move to upstate New York.
Oh, yeah.
You lose all the sabor.
Yeah, you come up here and you start getting real lateral with your voice. You start talking like this. This is how we talk in Central New York because this is where we're at. So pretty soon this is going to be you talking like this.
I don't know. I think my Colombian wife will keep me at least we'll keep a little bit of the sabor in effect.
Saborito.
Burrito. Making me
Good
hungry.
stuff.
I'm fasting over here. I got blood work in the morning, and now I want to go over to the taco truck and get some burritos.
This is it. This episode of the Same Old Dolphins is brought to you by middle-aged white dudes. We're glad that you're joining us today. Lots to discuss. Miami Dolphins 2-0 in the preseason. We're going to talk about that game over that victory, the 13-6 victory over Washington. Who stood out, who didn't. We're going to talk about a growing number of injuries that the Dolphins are dealing with right now and how concerned should we be. And we're also going to talk a little bit about a certain quarterback who went on to a certain show and had certain things to say about a certain former head coach of a certain Miami Dolphins football team. But before we do any of that, a reminder, if you're not doing so already, to make sure that you are subscribed to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere that you get your podcast. Make sure you smash the like button on this video if you're watching us on the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page, or if you're watching us on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it very much. Give us a shout out in the comments. Let us know. Just a heads up, we're going to do a pulse check in this episode. So give us one word to describe how you're feeling about the Miami Dolphins right now, because we're going to come back and talk about that in a little bit here on this show. And of course, make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. It is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. So make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention Dolphins Talk Extra. That's right. Dolphins Talk Extra is where we've got all kinds of bonus content coming your way. And once the season starts, this Monday night live stream that we're doing, it's going behind the paywall. We've only got this is the penultimate free live stream. We've got one more of the
for Monday.
Right. It's the penultimate free Monday live Same Old Dolphin Show, at least on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Once the season starts, these will be exclusively live on Dolphins Talk Extra. So come on over. As little as $3 a month, you can join the Dolphins Talk Extra family, get the bonus content. You can hear me and Aaron the Brain talk about things like Dan Jansen, Ski Free, Hard Knocks. We talked about all kinds of things on last week's bonus episode. So it was a lot to talk about. So head on over Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk, and join the family over there as well. Lots of fun stuff to discuss. All right. And first of all, Brain, thank you for filling in for me last week. It was a hellacious week at work, and it had been, by the time it would have been time to record, I think at that point I would have had, I don't know, 6 hours of sleep in like 3 days. It was just like, it was not going to be pretty. It was not going to be pretty. So happy that you and Mike could step in for me last week on Thursday. I appreciate it. Hopefully not too many more of those days, at least in the immediate future. But Brain, let's dive right into it. Let's talk about Miami Dolphins, Washington Commanders. Dolphins 13, Commanders 6. If you're going to talk about this game, the place to start for me, Brain, is, boy, you saw everything you wanted to see out of Tua Tagovailoa in that game, boy, didn't you?
Saw it in one drive, did everything we wanted to see, and got the hell out of there. And I mean, the quick, decisive, on target, big time throws, a little bit of mobility. I mean, it was all on display. So I love it. I loved what I saw out of Tua. I think of all the things that happened in that preseason game, the most important thing that happened in that preseason game was that first drive of the game, and everything else just kind of takes a back seat to that.
Yeah, I mean, Tua was crisp. You saw Mike McDaniel reach at least into the top part of his bag to take out a couple of things, and just in terms of moving things around a little bit. And you can just see it's a completely different offense when Tua is in there. And I mean, and he was in there without Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and it looked good. We got a little bit of action from Raheem Mostert. You got a little bit of action about Devon Achane. And, and then the Dolphins took care of business, and you got a great performance on that opening drive from River Cracraft. We're going to talk more about River Cracraft later in the show, because it turns out that the Dolphins are probably going to be without Mr. Cracraft for a little while, which is a little bit of a bummer. But, I thought that was good. A good first drive for the Miami Dolphins. I thought even, there were some ups and downs for the Dolphins offensive line. And that's one of those things that I think we're going to be talking about all season long, is that offensive line is going to be hit and miss. But before we get into the things that are not great, let's keep the positives flowing. Brain, some more good stuff from Chop Robinson and Mo Kamara in this game. We got a little bit more good stuff, I thought, from Marcus May, a little bit of good stuff from Patrick McMorris, a little bit of good stuff from Storm Duck and some of the other guys on this team. I mean, Storm Duck, you take it or leave it. But, it was...
For me, yeah. Look, I think the second half of that game, I mean, look, you can pick out some things that look good, but it was a lot of really nothing in the second half of the game. It was a snooze fest. And then, with Chris Brooks tearing off that big run and then getting hurt on the next play, and Jaquan Burton coming in and playing running back, became very apparent that the Dolphins weren't going to run the ball the rest of the game, basically. And that made that game drag on forever. It also made the offense very predictable, and it was really difficult to watch. And things weren't much better on Washington's side of the ball. So for me, the second half is like, yeah, there are some guys there that you're evaluating, but it was really difficult to watch. And I don't take a whole lot away from that. I think almost everything that you can take away. There's one thing in the second half that I do want to take away, and I'll circle back to that. But the vast majority of everything important that happened in that game happened on the first drive. It was Tua. It was the offense. It was the usage and movement of the tight ends. It was the running on short yardage for first downs and running the same play. If the first time around on a third and short didn't work, going back to the well, and showing a commitment to, this is something that we have to figure out, and we're going to do it until we figure it out. But the usage of Jonnu Smith, the usage of Julian Hill, their performance, the way Mostert looked, the way Achane looked, and again, the way Tua played, the starters that did played well. And you can kind of see a glimpse of a couple of wrinkles that we're going to see. And I think, we're going to talk about injuries to wide receivers, and we're going to talk about, well, what could potentially mitigate those losses. Well, I think number one, first and foremost, is if Jonnu Smith is going to be used essentially as a wide receiver, then you really don't need to have really even 6 wide receivers active, but you certainly don't need 7. And then who else maybe steps up? And in the second half, we got Eric Ezukanma stepping up, finally healthy, out there in a preseason game, giving us some explosive plays. And so I think he made a great case for himself as far as him trying to make the roster. And I think it's still going to be determined with another week of practice and another preseason game. But I think those things sort of mitigate these concerns that some people have about the Dolphins' depth at wide receiver, because at the end of the day, let's not forget that the Dolphins are primarily going to be throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, even last season, it was a stark drop off from those guys to your next, highest targeted receiver. And Jonnu Smith is an upgrade over what we have. We're going to get Odell Beckham. Heck, even if Odell Beckham is not ready at the very start of the season, you got to figure the way that they're using Jonnu Smith, the number of, whether we're going to have one tight end or two tight end, they're going to be using Devon Achane out of the backfield. I mean, how many snaps are they really counting on for Odell Beckham Jr.? I talked about this with Mike last week, is that, I mean, realistically, I think 15 to 20 snaps a game is probably on the high end for what you expect from Odell Beckham, even when he's healthy. So I think you're not going to get, as long as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are healthy, I'm not really concerned about the wide receiver depth on this team. It sucks that, if River Cracraft misses time, and you want there to be more depth, because if a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. isn't healthy, well, then we're right back in that same situation where we're wondering, well, who's the next guy? But I thought Malik Washington looked good. I think Eric Ezukanma looked good. And we'll see kind of what happens with the rest of the guys. But I'm not one of these people that is panicking over wide receiver depth, because I still think it's one of the best wide receiver cores in the league.
Yeah, and certainly with those top two, and that's where you're looking for the most part. And let's not forget, as we saw an example of in this game also, we had Devon Achane split out wide in this game as a receiver. And I think it's that is something that we're going to see more of throughout the season as well. Other takeaways from this game, Brandon, again, we'll talk about the injuries. Anybody else you want to single out for praise?
As far as praise, I mean, I thought Julian Hill played.
Julian
really well.
Hill's a dude, man. That guy's a dude.
I think Julian Hill is probably the most complete tight end on the roster right now.
Yeah.
And with his upside, with his athleticism, Julian Hill could, he could be everything that this offense really has been looking for as far as having a do everything tight end, because he's certainly shown that he's kicking butt as an inline blocker, and he can do some things. Is he the most dynamic receiving tight end? No, he's not the most dynamic, but there's athleticism there. There's a higher ceiling from a passing game standpoint than there is with Durham Smythe. And right now, I think he's as good a blocker as Durham Smythe. So, I think I'm excited to see what we get out of there. I'm really excited, like I said, about how they're going to use Jonnu Smith. A lot of motion at tight end. Achane looking good at. I think there's just going to be there's so many weapons in this offense. There's concern over offensive line, and it's valid, but the offense is largely going to be fine. Will they come through against the best defenses in the league in the most important games of the season? That remains to be seen, and it's not something that we are going to be able to answer in August or September or October or November. Realistically, that's something that gets answered in December and January. And so we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I'm excited to see more out of what this offense looks like. I think it's going to be fine on the defensive side of the ball. Hey, it was good to see a couple more rookies come in and make a couple of splash plays. I thought Chop Robinson and Mo Kamara, it was good to see them make some plays. Cam Smith had a shaky start, but then played well. But then that was a bummer to see him come off the field with an injury. Aside from that, I mean, I don't know that there was a lot of standout. I mean, you're very excited about Storm Duck. Personally,
I'm very excited about Storm Duck because he has one of the best names a Dolphin has had in my lifetime. That's why I'm excited about Storm Duck.
Yeah. I mean,
I would like the idea of being able to buy a jersey, an actual Miami Dolphins jersey, and have the word duck on the back and have it actually be a player on the 53-man roster. Like, that would be phenomenal. Would it break my heart? Would I be brokenhearted if Storm Duck didn't make the roster? Come on.
Well, good, because I got news for you.
Yeah. I feel bad. I think it is highly likely that Storm Duck ends up on the Miami Dolphins practice squad. And then I think it's highly likely that he could get snapped up off of that practice squad and end up playing for some other team. And if that's what happens, then good for him. Then quack, quack, baby.
Is that the title of the episode? Quack, quack, baby?
No, because some people will get the wrong idea.
True.
But
a few people, at least one specific person in the Discord channel.
Yes, at least one person in the Dolphins Talk Extra Discord channel would get the wrong idea if we name this episode Quack, Quack, Baby. And what's great is that he knows exactly who we're talking about. Hi, how are you? I hope you're enjoying your coffee. So Brian, I mean, I thought we saw some of the good and the bad from both Kamara and Chop Robinson, and we see the things that they need to work on. Same thing for Patrick Paul. Those rookies are like, they're rookies. They're going to be rough around the edges. They're going to have things that they need to work on. And hopefully these are not things that are going to affect the Dolphins in a negative way, too badly throughout the course of the season. But we'll sort of see as things come into, as things sort of clear up here over the next, week or so, as we figure out what this 53-man roster is going to look like. And I think one of the things that is going to help give us a little bit of clarity on some of those things, is the injury situation, because we're getting a clearer idea of who will and will not be ready for the regular season. Now, the big news coming out today, and it's even bigger news because it's preseason and he's been the top guy actually playing, is that River Cracraft has had what Mike McDaniel has termed a significant upper body injury. They're being a little vague on it. So I would venture to say it's probably not a muscular issue like a pec injury or something like that, because that's something that would probably put him out for the year. But they're saying he's going to miss some time. I'm wondering, does he have a punctured lung? Does he have a situation like that could knock him out for, I don't know.
I don't think we should speculate. I mean,
okay.
I think they're being vague on purpose. Like a significant upper body injury. I mean,
what is this? The NHL? Is this the Florida Panthers? He has an upper body injury.
What it is it's the preseason. So until we get to the first official injury report,
right, on
what is that, like Tuesday or Wednesday of game week, they have no need to divulge anything. The thing is at this point, while he said the word significant, it doesn't appear that he's out for the season. So
yes, but he did say he's going to miss some time, and it sounds likely that he is going to start the season off on IR at the very least. So, and as Mike points out in the chat, if he's on IR or PUP when the initial 53 comes out, they don't even have to put him on the injury report. So,
yeah.
So we'll see how it is. But I think that has provided some clarity, because I think it's obvious that, I mean, it feels at this point like Cracraft is not going to be on the roster, or if he is on the roster when the initial 53 is put out, he will immediately go on to IR. It'll be a situation like that. But I think they have this thing now where he can actually be put on IR right before the 53-man roster goes and have it. I think they get 2 guys that they can put on IR before the 53 is finalized. And those guys, then it's like the regular season IR. It's not like Taj Washington where he has to miss the year or anything like that.
Right. Or they could put him on the PUP, but if you put him on the PUP, then I think they have to miss 6 games. So
or at least the first month of the season.
Yeah. So I mean, the way they choose to designate that is going to tell you a little bit about the severity of the injury and how much time he's expecting to miss, or they're expecting him to miss. If he ends up on the IR spot, designated to return, then you could probably count on him sooner rather than later. If he's on the PUP, then they're basically writing him off for the first month of the season.
Yeah. And so we'll see what they end up doing. But the other news, it's like that's not where it ends, because we also know that Odell Beckham is not practicing at all this week, per Mike McDaniel. And so that means that we're now approaching the point where you have to start to wonder, are we going to have Odell Beckham at the start of the season? Now, earlier, Brain, I believe in the last episode, you said you were now at a 5 in terms of concern about Odell Beckham.
No, you were at a 5. I was at a 2.
Well, where are you now?
2.5.
Wow. So you're still not worried? You're not worried that Odell Beckham's not going to be ready for the start of the season?
One, at this point, I still believe that he probably will be ready for the start of the season. There's no need for him to practice against, he doesn't need to be in joint practice and take any undue contact. If he does miss a game or 2, I don't think that's necessarily going to hamper the team in their first 2 games. Well, I'd like for him to play against Buffalo, if they're, to be honest, one thing Mike said last week that I disagree with, is he keeps saying, well, if they're not going to play in week 1, then they're definitely not going to play in week 2 because it's a short week. And I would say that's not necessarily true, because if they're eyeing the Buffalo game and they're saying, he could probably play in the Jacksonville game, but why are we going to rush him out there to play against Jacksonville and then have to play it in Buffalo or against Buffalo 4 days later? They might just say, hey, just take the Jacksonville game off and be ready to play against Buffalo because it's the more important game. So I don't necessarily subscribe to this, oh, if he doesn't play in week 1, then he's definitely not playing in week 2. And I still think there's a good shot that he plays in week 1, because I think this is a maintenance program that they've been on. And by all accounts, there does not seem to be very much concern about it. Now, if we get past week 1 and week 2, if he doesn't play in week 1, I'm going to put my concern level at about a 5. If he doesn't play in week 2, then I'm going to put my concern level at about a 6. And then every week that he doesn't play, my concern is going to go higher and higher. But I'm not going to sit here 3 weeks before the start of the season and freak out about Odell Beckham Jr. not practicing. Like I said, I don't think they're counting on him for playing much more than 15 to 20 snaps. You're going to have Devon Achane taking routes, lined up in the slot or out wide. You're going to have Jonnu Smith taking routes, lining up out wide. You're going to be running some 2 tight end stuff. I'm not that concerned about it. He's the number 3 receiver on an offense that is going to target their top 2 receivers at such a high clip that position is only important in the biggest games of the season.
Okay. What about Isaiah Wynn? How do you feel about that situation?
So Isaiah Wynn, I was at, I think I was at a 5 when I did the show with you. I'm much higher on the panic meter with Isaiah Wynn based on the comments that Mike McDaniel had. And I talked about this with Mike. At this point, I don't think you can count on Isaiah Wynn. And so, look, I said all offseason, the one area that I thought Chris Greer did not do a really good job on this offseason was addressing the interior offensive line. And at this point, I just think it's too late. Now, might you get lucky? Maybe somebody shakes free as a cap casualty and Miami decides to kick the tires on it. Yeah, that might happen. But every indication coming out of there is that the Dolphins are happy with what they have. They're happy with, Jack Driscoll played pretty well in this game. They're happy with Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, and Aaron Brewer's injury is not something that they're significantly concerned about. I would be a little concerned, but it is what it is. So we're just going to, if at the end of the season we look at it and we say, hey, the interior offensive line, this ended up being a weakness that ended up costing them, well, then you have a very defined, narrow target of what you need to do next season to get over the hump, because next season is really the year that this is all building for. Not that we should be throwing away this year, because I think this is firmly a year that's in the winning window. But I think this year, due to the cap constraints that they had coming into, the offseason before they were able to restructure Tyreek and re-sign Tua long term, I think, they were in a spot where, because of the timing of everything, they weren't really able to address those things early in the offseason. And those things kind of went by the wayside, but they've done such a good job of rebuilding the rest of the roster and recalibrating in such a way that they have cap space that it'd be pretty easy if the one place or two, if you have one or two places and it's like, hey, we need an interior defensive lineman and an interior offensive lineman, and you look at the roster going into next season and you say, yeah, that's kind of all we need, and we feel really, really good about our chances, that's not a bad place to be.
Sure. But I would say it underscores the importance of this regular season for the Miami Dolphins, because this entire team is built on, the offense is entirely built on mitigating the offensive line, right? That's what this offense is kind of built to do. It's built on firepower, and it's all about, it doesn't matter that the offensive line is not that great, because this offense is going to be so fast and so operational and be able to, fire on all cylinders, that it doesn't matter if the offensive line isn't as strong as it should, as it could be.
The passing game anyway.
Right. At least in terms of the passing game, but it's like, we don't know whether or not this offensive line is going to be able to create running room for Achane and Mostert the way that you would like it to. And the other thing is, when you get to the end of the season, when you get to late in the year, and we saw this last year, when you got to go on the road and you got to play in hostile conditions, whether we're talking about the weather or we're just talking about the fans and all of that noise, you've got to be able to play your game. And what this team has shown is that it struggles in those hostile environments, when it's cold out and when the fans are loud. It's such a timing based offense that if the conditions aren't right for the team, they struggle and it falls apart. And and part of that is health, but part of it is also just, that's the nature of when you are a kind of finesse team like the Miami Dolphins are. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory in any way, because some people hear, oh, they're a finesse team, and they think, well, that's being used as a slur on the team. And that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that this is a team that the timing of the offense is very, very important, and how those play calls work and how the snap counts work, and all of that timing is so precise. And it remains to be seen whether this team is going to be able to execute at the way that it wants to when the conditions are not ideal in every way surrounding them. And
yeah, I think they're better equipped to do it this year, because somebody in the comments section, mentioned, well, if it was our buddy, Mr. McDolphin. So if Hill gets hurt, we're in the same spot as last year. And that was in reference to Odell Beckham Jr. potentially not being ready. I disagree, because one, at some point, Odell Beckham Jr. will be ready, in my opinion, but also you've got Jonnu Smith, and you've got another year of experience with Devon Achane now being
Eric Azukama.
well, I'm not counting on Eric Ezukanma.
Malik Washington.
But I think the combination of
Braxton Berrios.
Well, Braxton Berrios was here last year, but if you add in the combination of Devon Achane more involved in the offense in the passing game, Jonnu Smith being an extra weapon, another year under his belt for Julian Hill, and then you add in eventually Odell Beckham Jr., and you also add in the fact that it's another year of experience in the offense of Tua and another year working together of Tua and Mike McDaniel and this offense evolving. I think there's a lot of reasons to be more optimistic about this offense being able to withstand an injury to one of their best wide receivers. That said, what makes this Dolphins offense special is Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So if one of those guys gets hurt, obviously the offense is going to be impacted negatively. There's not an offense in the league where you take away their best player and all of a sudden, and they're not going to skip a beat. Like, that's going to happen. But it's about, this year is about finding ways to mitigate that if and when it happens, and having other tools in the toolbox that you can go to. And I think Chris Greer did a good job of building the roster in that way. And I have faith that Mike McDaniel will have evolved the offense to a certain degree to mitigate that as well, as we saw from year 1 to year 2, and from year 2, well, as we saw from year 1 to year 2, because this is year 3.
Right. All right. Well, it's good to know that that's how you're feeling about all of that. We're going to check your pulse in a little bit, but first we have to talk about a certain quarterback who was on a certain radio show. But before we talk about that, we have to talk about our friends at Caneswear.com. The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. Always love to hear from our friends at Caneswear.com. Praying. Tua Tagovailoa was on the Dan Lebitard show. And he kind of let it rip on Brian Flores. And, you know, I thought to myself, well, good for you.
Yeah.
Let it all out. And I kind of like, you know, he's got his contract now. So he's just like, okay, well, now I'm not going to hold anything back. And he basically had a terrible person. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he basically called Flores a terrible person who was telling him terrible things, that he sucked, that he didn't deserve to be here, and that he didn't belong, and all of this. And then he had Mike McDaniel show up and say the complete opposite. And now that was a big game changer for him. And I guess my biggest takeaway is, first of all, good for Tua. Second of all, I think we're learning more and more about the Brian Flores regime in Miami as time goes on. Tua wasn't the only one that had a problem with Flores. And, you know, to anybody who would say, I guess what I would say is, to anybody who would say that Tua is soft or Tua is weak or anything like that, I would say Brian Flores has a responsibility as the head coach to get the very best out of his players. And in order to get the very best out of your players, there are different things that you are going to have to do that, with different players. Are there certain players out there who will absolutely respond to being ridden and talked down to and drilled down like that? Yes, there are some people who really like that sort of tough love approach and can accept it and respond to it in a big way. And are there other people who don't? Yes. Certain people do not respond very well to that. And it doesn't make somebody soft. It doesn't make somebody weak if they don't respond to that. And the other thing that I would say is there's a difference between being hard on somebody and practicing tough love and being completely abusive. Like there is a difference there. And while again, we don't have the entire picture and we're only getting to a side of the story, if the things that if the quotes that Tua put out there today were things that were actually said to him, like that indicates a problem.
Do you want to hear the quote?
Yeah, let's hear the quote.
All right. To put in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have someone else come in, Mike McDaniel, and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, how would it make you feel to listen to one or the other? And then he goes on to say, you have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear or you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. Where is the lie?
Yeah.
Like nobody is going to be benefiting from that situation. Now, might you respond to it in a certain way? Sure, you could. It could, like, you know, some people are like, oh yeah, that's going to fire me up to perform better. I would say that's the minority of people. If I don't care how good you are at your job and how confident you are, if you go to start somewhere new and you were praised every step of the way at every job that you ever had, and you got hired, you got hired with this new job at this great position, because let's face it, he was a number 5 draft pick. He was, obviously highly regarded and brought in. And from day one, your boss is just belittling you every single step of the way and telling you how bad you are. That is not an environment that's conducive to winning.
And let's also say this, and let me interject this, Brain. First of all, this man's head coach in college was Nick Saban.
Well, you know what's interesting? Did you watch Hard Knocks?
I have not watched the Bears.
Okay, I won't spoil it, but in the latest episode of Hard Knocks, Nick Saban meets with Matt Eberflus.
Oh,
and
terrific.
Because apparently when Nick Saban got his head coach or his first coaching job, it was at the University of Toledo, and Matt Eberflus was his linebacker. So there's the connection there. Okay. And so they're tight. So he goes in to meet and they start talking about Caleb Williams. And Nick Saban, love him or hate him, most Dolphin fans would hate him, but you can't argue with the results.
Can't imagine why a Dolphin fan would hate Nick Saban.
But love him or hate him, you can't argue with the fact that he's arguably the best college coach of all time. And you know what he told Matt Eberflus in regards to him dealing with quarterbacks? He said, I would never openly criticize the quarterback in front of his teammates. I would never yell at him in front of his teammates. I would, if he needed to be coached, I would coach him. But it was never like a belittling situation. It was always to build him up and to encourage him to be positive and to also then be able to be seen as a leader from his other teammates. Because if you're belittling the guy that's supposed to be the leader of your team, well, now his teammates are not going to see him as the leader of the team. And so you know, a lot of people say, well, Nick Saban is really tough on guys. That was his reputation from his short time in Miami, was how much of an a-hole he was to his players. Well, maybe he learned after that and went to Alabama, and I'm sure he was still really hard on players, but he said specifically about the quarterback position that he never yelled at his quarterback in front of the other team. So you bring up Nick Saban into the conversation. I think that's interesting when you compare that to how Brian Flores treated it.
Right. But that's not to say that Nick Saban would never have been critical and never been hard on his quarterback, but he's saying specifically that there are certain scenarios where he would be. And let's also not forget, like, what a highly competitive high school program Tua was in. I mean, he was raised to be a professional quarterback. There is no way that this guy made it all the way through without being coached tough and being coached hard at some point down the line, right? That, like, there's no way that Tua showed up at the first day of NFL training camp thinking that this was going to be like a daycare program and that everybody was like everybody can't wait to powder his butt. Like, you know, there's no way that was what he was walking into, but it shows you, it just, again, there's being tough and being a hard coach and being demanding, and there's being abusive. And what it sounds like is that this guy was abusive, and his job as a head coach is like, and it's the same problem with Vic Fangio, right? It's like, you don't get to say, like, this is how I'm going to talk to you, and blah, 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 blah. And this is how it is. This is how it is. This is how it is. This isn't 1960 anymore, right? The world has changed. People are different, and people don't respond to the same thing anymore. So you gotta, I don't know. I just feel like it is indicative of the fact that Brian Flores, for as great as he is as a tactician, for his ability to know the game, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, his biggest flaw is in the interpersonal and how he deals with people. And it's something that I'm going to be very curious to see as his career goes on, if that is something that he is ever going to address or come to terms with.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, you got people saying, oh, well, Tua shouldn't be speaking on Brian Flores. And I don't give a damn. I think it's the most hypocritical thing in the world when fans tell players to shut up and not speak their mind, because the first time that a player gives you like the cliches and doesn't tell you anything in an interview is when the fan comes up and says, oh, what a boring interview. He doesn't say anything. Like, you know, like, give us something. Like, let these people be people. And at the end of the day, judge them for their play on the field. You want to judge Tua and you say, well, I don't like the way Tua's performed on the field because we haven't won a playoff game. That's fine. That's fine. I got no problem with Tua speaking. Should he have gone as far as saying that Brian Flores was a terrible person? It might be a little bit harsh. He could have just called him an asshole.
Oh, we got to swear right on the show. Fantastic. I got to put the explicit tag on the episode. Thanks, Brain.
My pleasure.
Well, with all that out of the way, it's time to check your pulse.
I mean, check your pulse if you're not fired up.
That's right. It is once again time to check your pulse. This is where we ask you to provide us with one word to describe how you are feeling right now about your Miami Dolphins. One word. How are you feeling about the Miami Dolphins? Tell us in one word right now. Leave it below in the comments. Hit us up. Let us know what you're feeling like right now. Brain, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it. I feel undeterred. I don't think we've seen anything or heard anything in camp that should change your expectation of what this season is going to be. There's been some injuries. I think by and large, they've been insignificant. I mean, look back last year and Jalen Ramsey got hurt and we were wondering how much time Jalen Ramsey was going to miss half the season. He did end up missing about half the season. We've, to this point, escaped that from a real significant contributor. We'll see what happens with Odell Beckham Jr., with Isaiah Wynn, but I don't feel like either of those things are moving the needle for me right now. And I don't think they should for anybody. I mean, you believe what you believe. And if you believe that, either of those guys move the needle for you a ton, then, you're more than welcome to your opinion. But to me, if you thought this was a Super Bowl team, coming into preseason, I have seen nothing that would tell me otherwise. If you believe that this was going to be a team that was going to take a major step back, I've seen nothing that would convince me otherwise. If you thought that this was going to be a team that was going to be very similar to what they were last year, that's kind of where I'm at. And I've seen nothing that has changed my opinion on that. So right now I feel undeterred. I just feel like, all right, we're right on track for this thing. I'm not going to make any huge changes of opinion based on anything that I see in preseason. If there's a real significant injury that happens, then obviously that could change things. But at this point, I'm undeterred.
All right. I'll tell you how. Well, before I tell you how I'm feeling, let's see what the people are saying here. Let's see. Brad Keel is psyched, and so is Julie Remetta, also feeling psyched. Jordan Murray says convalescence. Oh man, he's feeling ill. He's trying to get better. He's convalescence. Laird Fentress is feeling hyper cautious. Mr. McDolphin is eager. Larry Thompson dissatisfied. Malcolm Stewart, easy. Mike Oliva is feeling oozy. And 90 MFC says mediocrity. Oh, and then we've got Wesley Gray chiming in right here at the end. Odelled. Feeling Odelled, which, I mean, okay. All right. A little early. I'll tell you how I'm feeling right now, Brain. And you may not be familiar with this word, but I'm vamping. I'm vamping right now. What that means is like you think about, I work in the theater, right? And so a vamp is something that's playing underneath a song, right? If there's underscoring in a song and it gets to the section where it's like, okay, now we're just waiting for the singer to come in. So then you're just playing the same chords over and over again. And you're vamping. The piano is vamping, waiting for that person to come in and lead us through the song. And I'm kind of vamping. I feel like I'm vamping right now because I am waiting for this season to really kick off so I can really start to learn some things about what this team actually is. Because you learn things in the preseason about like, oh, this player on this side of the team is good. And, and this bubble guy is going to make the team. And okay, great. But none of that really means anything until you get there and you're playing real football against real teams, right? What does Charlie Touche say? Until you're facing live bullets or live ammunition, I think is what he says, right? And until you're up against live ammunition, you don't really know. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Because I see, like you said, I can see where there are things that could be pretty good for this Dolphins team. And I see where there are things that could be a little scary for this Dolphins team. But as it stands, we still got one preseason game left. And it's one preseason game where I feel like the bulk of what we're going to see is bottom of the roster guys based on how the injuries have gone and all of that. And based on how well the first team offense performed, even without Hill and Waddle, I feel like we're probably going to be seeing bottom of the roster guys in that final preseason game. So I'm just kind of vamping until we get to the real stuff. And then we're going to know. So that's my pulse check. And here we go. So there we are. I think that's going to wrap us up for this episode of the Same Old Dolphin Show. We'll be back on Thursday. I should be here. And we're going to talk about the 53-man roster and who we think has the leg up for some of those bubble positions. Right? Oh, here's a good one from Laird Fentress about vamping. Everybody has the Mike Tyson quote. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Absolutely. And so what is going to happen when the Dolphins actually get punched in the mouth? That's what we need to find out. How are they going to respond? We will be back Thursday to discuss joint practice with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looking ahead to the final preseason game, talking about the 53-man roster. And then after that, Aaron the Brain, we're going to be doing some shows in the same room.
Yeah, we're going to do a couple of shows in the same room while I'm up there.
Very exciting. Brain is coming to town, which we're excited about. So we'll have me and the Brain together in the same room doing a couple shows for you. We'll do our final Monday night live stream that is on the YouTube for everybody. And then we'll do another show on Thursday. And then before you know it, then it's going to be football season. It's all happening. Pretty fired up about that. If you are a Dolphins Talk Extra subscriber, stay tuned because we're going to be going live with a special bonus segment just for Dolphins Talk Extra. If you're not a subscriber to Dolphins Talk Extra, this is your cue to head over to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk and become a subscriber for as little as $3. And you can join in on that bonus segment, which is going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, make sure you download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphin Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating. Leave us a positive review. Subscribe to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel. Follow along on the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page. And, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk to you again next time. Go Dolphins!
Live bullets.